Hey there, fellow 562ers. I can't believe we're at the end of the semester. This is awesome. At any rate, I just look forward to finding out what everyone else did for your final research project and what you came up with as your question, and deepening the question outside of the modules. So I'll start with, my project, since this is my video. Okay, so the call for papers that I'm responding to is put on by the University of Maryland Graduate English Organization, and it's entitled Assembling Uncharted Futures, Interrogating Traditions Through the Process of Recovery and Renewal. This is for the GeoConference 2022, and the submission deadline would be January 7th. I think the conference actually takes place in the beginning of March via a Zoom webinar. So it would actually be possible for me to participate in this if I would want to pursue this research topic. So at any rate, things about this particular call for papers that interested me are that it's dealing with how we're moving into an uncharted future, unmapped futures, but also how to preserve some of the traditions of the past. I guess questioning which ones do we dispose of, what do we keep? And I think those were kind of central questions in all of our modules as far as rhetoric and composition is concerned, because we're not certain if it lays in the past or the future, as far as, how we define it, I guess. One of the interesting things that, I'm going to digress from the actual call for papers into my research here, but that I learned is that rhetoric and composition is the oldest academic discipline in academia. So there is definitely some recalcitrance to try to change that, by many. So at any rate, okay, so back to the call for papers. It asks for any sort of rhetoric, digital rhetoric, history of rhetoric, cultural rhetoric, women's and feminist rhetoric. So I think that that this conference is actually really perfect for my ideas and my submissions. Also, the last week's discussion really stimulated for me, kind of brought together, I think, a lot of the ideas that we had been discussing throughout, from humanism, bearing witness, and what actually counts as rhetoric as far as like the power of imagery, and in particular digital literacy. So I really wanted to kind of investigate this a little bit further. I had a few other ideas for different, it was really hard to narrow it down, so that's why I say I'm curious to see what everyone came up with. But some of them were so convoluted and complex that it would have been a thesis rather than just this proposal. So I tried to simplify the live question and be able to approach it, I guess, as thoroughly as possible, instead of having a really deep live question and maybe only getting some shallow answers about it. So, okay, going back to, and I apologize for all my ums and so's. I'm not great at making these videos, and I've tried to pause it a couple of times, and I returned to it, and I've messed the whole thing up, so I'm trying to just do one shoot. And yeah, so my apologies. So at any rate, my overall question is visual rhetoric a necessary inclusion in rhetoric and composition classes? And my overall argument is based on the ideas that are presented by Sharon Crowley and Christy Fleckenstein. Mostly I use their ideas of, I guess the affect of any of these classes are I'm sorry, was there a call coming in? I don't know if that was recording it or not. I can't stop the recording because I just can't do this again. So yeah. At any rate, okay, so Christy Fleckenstein and Sharon Crowley are the two theorists who I try to base my ideas mostly on, given the idea that the impact of a rhetoric and composition class should be that it produces I guess, agents of change in students, those who are actually going to apply the notions and ideas discussed in rhetoric to trying to impact and affect social change. Because there's in these theories a very close connection to, I guess, the social undercurrents, political, moral, and other that do impact, I guess, the way that. Okay, I think I paused it and started again. Okay, I am so sorry. I have. There's so much going on for me to make this one video. It's absolutely crazy. I tried to set aside the best time possible and even have someone here watching my kids, so I apologize. But of good news is that I successfully paused and continued the recording. That's the good news. At any rate, if you're still with me here, I'd like to really figure out, first of all, I guess, what's the ostensive purpose of a rhetoric and composition class. Is it to study the art of it as more of a, I guess, an appreciation type course, or is it an application type course where we're actually looking to take these into practice? And I think, especially in our modern age, that it's an application and a practical type course. We're not looking to just theorize about these things. We're actually using these in practice. We're applying them in, professional lives or in our personal lives. It also is provides ways for us to understand others who have rhetoric, and visual rhetoric in particular is, I'm getting better at this, visual rhetoric in particular is prevalent in our modern culture. I also make another argument that some might take issue with, and that would be that we're conditioned in our modern society for immediacy. And as such, digital literacy is even exponentially more important because it accomplishes so much more immediately. We know just from, our common knowledge and use of social media that posts that don't have a picture on them get scrolled through. This isn't to say that the power of words are less powerful than they used to be. I think that when people actually do take the time to read and to write and speak, that they're even more powerful given our predominant, I guess, favoritism for digital imagery. So I make the argument that the best way really to connect with a generation that has grown up on digital imagery is with digital imagery. It wouldn't really make a lot of sense to leave that out of a curriculum that wanted to produce agents and social actors. So that's kind of like my gist, right? But I also wanted to touch on, I guess, the ideas of the waning of affect that comes from the immediacy and our ability to bear witness to others. So, because we are so immediately involved with the suffering of those who we wouldn't otherwise be, it impacts us in different ways. Some people have incredible compassion and others are desensitized. As a digression, it reminds me a lot of Don DeLillo's White Noise, where the Gladney family likes to sit at home and eat takeout food and Chinese food while they watch, the tragedies on TV unfold. And at one point, there's like a flood or, just a horrible tragedy. But the news reports that less people died than we had initially assumed. And the family is almost disappointed. And this reaction really shows, what can happen with desensitization of being able to bear witness to others and be exposed to just too much suffering. So I think with digital imagery, there's a really great responsibility, especially as educators, for us to, I guess, monitor it so that we can control that waning of affect and that we don't use it in abusive ways. I do look into a couple of other theories that disagree with my perspective, and namely, I guess, actually more with Sharon Crowley's perspective or Christy Fleckenstein's, but mainly I found Richard Sherwitz and Johanna Hartelius, who both believe that rhetoric should not be taught in order to solely promote the social good. I can share that argument, or I guess expand that argument to say that it shouldn't be taught solely for that purpose, but it is, in the end, for that purpose, I believe. So, it's a great counterpoint here, and it argues that there should be an austere connection between traditional practices, because Sherwitz and Hartelius believe that if we stick to the tradition of rhetoric and composition, it already produces the most ethical types of social actors and agents. So kind of an interesting way of approaching the future, but also retaining the past. And let's see here. I also think that another author who really helped me out here was Laurie Gree's Iconographic Tracking, a digital research method for visual rhetoric and circulation studies. So another aspect to this that I would perhaps investigate in this paper, or a follow-up paper to this one, would be about the actual dissemination of information and how that impacts rhetoric. So I think that ties into the whole waning of affect as well. So that I don't run on too long here, I just want to say that this is a really interesting topic to me. I've always been super intrigued by the way that I feel when I see different imagery, and I know that I'm one of those super compassionate people who can't seem to get desensitized, so I don't know. I kind of seek to understand the other side and then find if there's a happy medium between the two. Please let me know what your thoughts are. I hope that I fulfilled what we were supposed to do here. And again, I apologize for my horribly unprofessional video. Thanks for sticking with me.